I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Okay, we're well into the dog days of summer now. I've finally gotten a little bit more time to myself and my family, spent a little bit more time relaxing, and as promised last month, I said I would start doing a few more book reviews. I finally had a chance to sit by my pool and read a few more books. So I wanted to kick it off with the latest one I read, which is Shoe Dog, the Phil Knight story. And Phil Knight, as people know, is the founder of Nike. And this is a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. It's a light read. Took me about 4 days to read through it. And I would highly recommend it to everybody, especially though my younger viewers. Because it's really a story of perseverance, of not giving up. Things and success in life do not come overnight. It's a long process, and there's going to be a lot of roadblocks along the way, a lot of disappointments, a lot of wanting to give up, just like I've blogged about here many times. Achieving financial success, buying a house, buying your principal residence, investing your money, getting it working for you takes time. It's a 20, 30, 40-year game here. Now, on a side note, so Nike, fantastic company. We all know the company of Nike. I've owned Nike in my portfolio, the shares of Nike, probably for about 12 or 13 years. It's been an incredible stock for me. It's one of my core holdings. The stock is up probably about 40% just in the last year. So Phil Knight has been very good to me over the last 10 or 12 years. But some takeaways from the book. As I say, it's a story about perseverance, and a lot of people seem to think that, you know, successful people, they're just born that way, and success came overnight to a lot of people. And pretty much every autobiography I've read, either of a successful CEO, entrepreneur, athlete, musician, that's never the case. It's always a lot of work, a lot of grinding, a lot of disappointment, a lot of wanting to give up, but perseverance and keep going until they attain their goals. And that's totally the story of Phil Knight. Not to give away all the book, but talk about anything that could go wrong did go wrong when he was starting Nike. Prior to that, he started off as a shoe distributor for a Japanese company called Osaka Tiger. They made a lot of wrestling and track shoes, but they weren't very good to him. You know, in the early years, every single month was just barely making payroll, trying to get another loan from the bank. You know, $5 or $6 in the checking account, and worried about if he's going to be able to pay his employees or order some more stock. And that's the way it was for him for the first 7 or 8 years. But, you know, some interesting things with the book, and I've talked about it a bit as well, and it's about surrounding yourself with positive people. You're not surrounding yourself. Phil Knight didn't surround himself with anybody who was negative. It was always smart, can-do, people that wanted success and would do anything to get there. And it was funny because his first lawyer when he first started out, he had a lawyer and an accountant. You'd think being a shoe company, an athletic shoe company, you'd be surrounded with athletes, but that wasn't the case. Both his accountant and his lawyer were both obese. I think they were one Snickers bar away from weighing 320, and his director of sales was in a wheelchair. So they would show up to these meetings, people expecting to see these athletes, and you had 2 obese guys and a guy in a wheelchair. But that didn't matter to Phil Knight. Again, he wanted the best people. He wanted people who were doers and not don'ters. And if they were 300 pounds, so be it. You know, the other interesting takeaway from the book, and I read this so many times, is, and a lot of people will talk about, you know, some of the stages in their life and when they hit these certain milestones. And Phil Knight was no different than a lot of books I've read. He talks about how he bought his first house. He bought it quite young. He was just starting a family. Him and his family bought a modest house just outside Portland, and how the feeling he had that he had kind of arrived when he bought his first house. Up until that time, he was living at home in his parents' basement and then renting a place for quite a number of years. So it's interesting how home ownership And I know that's the same thing for me when I bought my first place as well. How that is always in the autobiographies. They never brush over that because it is kind of a passage. It's kind of a hurdle you jump, and it's your first real taste of success when you stop renting and buy your principal residence. And he talks about it in the book. And in short order, after he bought his first house, he started Nike, got rid of Osaka, got rid of the Tiger brand, and in short order bought a bigger and better house not too long after that, and talked about that. But it's a book about not giving up. Success does not come overnight. And listen, this is the type of books, I read a lot of books, as people know, and these are the type of books that people should be reading. This is light summertime reading. It's just, it reaffirms my thinking, how I work, surrounding yourself with positive people. It's just positive affirmation for me. And there's some great stories in the book. I think you'll enjoy it. One of the things that he talked about at the end of the book, Phil Knight is now worth about a cool $50 billion. $50 billion. Never dreamed that he would ever have that kind of success. And none of the guys that entrepreneurs and successful people I read about, ever think about the money. They never do. It's just a byproduct of working hard, methodically, just keep getting better every day, and it's incredible the wealth you can build. It just sneaks up on you. It does. I talk a little bit about it in my book. I don't have anywhere near the success of Phil Knight, but it was the same thing for me. Success just kind of sneaks up on you after about 10 or 15 years. Before you know it, you're financially secure. You didn't really think about it much up until then. But he left a few takeaways, and one of the things Phil talked about at the end, he talked about young people today. He tours a lot of universities. His alma mater is University of Oregon, which he's contributed hundreds of millions of dollars to. But he's often asked to do commencement speeches and that kind of thing at various universities. A couple takeaways. He said that young people today are much smarter than when he was their age, and I can totally believe that. And I would agree with that. But he said on the downside, he finds that a lot of young people are much more pessimistic and much more negative about things than he ever was. Phil Knight never complained, ever. Sound familiar? I talk about it here too. Successful people rarely complain. They might do a little bit of it for self-motivation, but they won't do much because they know that success is up to them. All these external factors, and Phil had a ton of them that weren't his fault. Everything from bankers not representing him properly, getting sued many times, having bad distribution deals, currency exchanges, tariffs. He had all kinds of things that he could have easily quit. But instead, he did the mirror test, and if it's going to be up to me, and just persevered and kept pushing through. He only concentrated and only concerned himself with the things that were in his control and not external things that he had no control over. Remember that. But a lot of young people, and I think it's this social media, he blames it on the internet. There's just too many negative things that are constantly bombarding people these days, and they become pessimistic and negative. And I would agree, because I never had that 20 or 25 years ago when I was starting out. I was always positive and surrounded myself with other positive people and always focused on what I could do. I could care less about what the government was doing or taxes. They were beyond my control, so who cares? Same thing today. But I would agree with his observation there. So you want to stay positive, you want to keep moving forward. Nothing in life that's worth achieving, or to get the success Phil Knight had, is going to come easy. Nothing in life that's worth doing is going to be easy. It's going to take some work, and it's going to take some time, but enjoy the ride. Phil Knight did. He had some times that were pretty dark for him, wanted to quit, but he also had some incredible stories in here of success as well. And you'll get that along the way. It's kind of the carrot that keeps you going. So Shoe Dog, the Phil Knight story, good summertime reading. On a side note, I bought this book. I had this book on my radar for a while. I had heard that it was a good read about a year ago. Was tempted to buy it not long ago at the airport for around $45. I was in Costco a week ago, and it was on sale at Costco for 14 bucks. So another plug. If you don't own Costco in your portfolio, you should as well. That's another fantastic company, and often you can find some great business books at Costco for $10, $15. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.